In Matthew chapter 23 and verse 4, Jesus was speaking to the Pharisees, and we know that that was a cruel and a rude bunch of people, amen. And the Lord didn't like the Pharisees. It's something that's uncommonly stated today, that the Lord would dislike somebody or not like somebody, but the Bible is full of it. God does not like ungodly people, so much so that He will not fellowship them, and He will not fellowship them for eternity. Jesus didn't like the Pharisees. Every name that you could call someone, and as deep as He could go into his mind with everything that was foul and evil, He called them. So again, you asked yourself, would Jesus call you a name? He sure would. Would Jesus have been politically correct? No, He would not. Jesus is not a pacifist. Amen. He said, pertaining to the scribes and the Pharisees in Matthew chapter 23 and in verse 4, He said this: "For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and they lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move one of them with their fingers." Now I want you to think about and just focus on it for just a minute in your mind and concentrate on the subject. I want you to think about how truly evil it is to inflict damage upon another person's life. This is as evil and it is cruel and wicked as you can get. Because you think about what life is, and you think about what someone else's life is. You know that it is a sacred thing. And you know that here on the earth, physically as we live here, you know that it's a limited thing. There's just a limited amount of time that the person sitting next to you has. There's just a limited amount of life that is in their bodies. They've come into this world and they want to be happy. They've come into this world and they want to do good. Those that do, there are evil, and we're not talking about them. For us to inflict damage upon another person's life is the most evil thing that we can do. And as people, you and I have the ability to inflict damage on somebody else in three different ways. We can inflict damage upon their lives mentally. You can harm them mentally. You can take the drive of life away from them. You can make them give up on life. You can make them surrender to life. You can make them not want to live. And you would ask yourself, what right in this world would you have to take the will to live away from another human being? There is also that physically, that we can inflict damage upon other people's lives physically. We can become brutal. We can become people that harm and that shoot or that kill innocent people, people that you've never even known. Bomb their airplanes with innocent children. You can be a spouse, afflicts enormous difficulties upon the life of your husband or the wife, inflicting damage mentally or abusing physically. You have to remember this, that the person that you live with, the person that you meet, the person that you see, the person that you inflict damage upon their lives, you need to remember this. First of all, they're living beings. They feel and they hurt. You must also remember this, that the woman you married, or the man that you married, or the girlfriend that you have, or the boyfriend that you have, is somebody's child. I don't care if they are 45 years old. Not many days ago, that 45-year-old was a child. Not many days ago. You might think, some of you young folks, you might think 45 is a long ways ahead of you. But when you get to 45, you'll see 17 ain't far behind you at all. That person that you're dealing with is somebody's child. There was a mother and there was a father in that person's life that had the greatest expectations, the greatest hopes, and the greatest dreams for that person. What right would you have? What right would I have then to take a life that a mother, a father, a grandparent had invested themselves and their lives in with hopes and dreams of them accomplishing and living, and above all, that they be happy? What you want more than anything in your life, what a parent wants more than anything in his life, what a mother wants more than anything in her life, is she wants her children to be happy, wants them to know peace. And then they hook up with somebody who abuses them, takes the drive to live away from them, inflicts bodily damage on them, and turns their lives into a living hell. You got to ask yourself, what right do you have to inflict damage upon another person's life? You have no right whatsoever. And if we were to be Christ-like, and if we wanted to be Christ-like, this would be something that certainly would be in the forefronts of our minds and also the building and the making of our attitudes. It would be that the life that is in somebody else is sacred, it is limited, and what I need to do is try to enhance it, better it, and do good by it as best as lives possible in me. Not to go about placing upon people's backs heavy burdens, placing upon their backs things that are grievous to be borne, to be carried. Well, this is what the scribes and the Pharisees did. This is what their life was made out of. These people were lawmakers. Now you have to contrast them with their 613 laws. And then all of the amendments to those laws that they made, which then numbered into the thousands. Sounds like the IRS to me. You see, with the IRS, it's like this. If they want to get you, they can get you. It doesn't matter if you've been as honest as you can be, as truthful as you can be. It doesn't matter if you've met everything you're supposed to meet and tried your best to do everything right. You see, they have a tax code that are thousands of pages long. Those thousands of pages, some 10,000 pages. Those 10,000 pages are 10,000 pages of laws. You know who can abide by that? Nobody. You know who can't abide by that? Every person that works in the IRS and every person employed by the IRS and everybody that audits for the IRS. Not a one of them can abide by those laws, because the simple fact is you don't know what's in those laws, and I don't know what's in those laws, and the head of the IRS don't know what's in those laws. We're now being audited by mail. Ain't no serious thing. But still and yet I can't help but think I'm being audited by an organization. Mr. Obama put a man there named Tim Geithner. Mr. Geithner became the head of the IRS when he had not paid taxes in 5 years. That's cute, ain't it? When questioned by the Congress about why he hadn't paid taxes in 5 years, Mr. Geithner said because he didn't understand the tax code. And then he's going to put me in jail, you in jail, take your houses, take your cars, because you didn't pay your taxes. If the man who runs the show don't understand the show, then every one of us ought to be exempt from having anything to do with the show. That's righteous. Now, I use that as a simple illustration because that is, spiritually, if you call it that, that is what the Pharisees were. They were lawmakers. And what they did was they created laws, 613 to be exact. But then, like laws, when you create them, there has to be amendments. Because once you pass this particular law, people get real creative and find ways around the law, and so you have to amend the law, thereby creating another law to take care of the problem that you didn't consider in your first set of laws that you made, until finally there was thousands and thousands and thousands of laws, spiritual laws, enforced. That means that you would do it or you would get stoned. You would do it or you would get beat with whips. You would do it or you would be put to death on some cross. Some of the laws that the Pharisees had placed upon people was this. Number one, they couldn't heal on the Sabbath day. Jesus healed a blind man, but he healed him on the wrong day. How could you heal a blind man? How could you heal a blind man on the wrong day? How could you cure someone of sickness on the wrong day? That would always be the right thing to do. But when you deal with laws, they're not concerned about right things. And when you deal with Pharisees and lawmakers and legalistic attitudes, they're not concerned with right things to do. Those who have the power to make law makes laws that you have to abide by that they don't. That's what it means here when it says they wouldn't touch one of them with one of their fingers, but they would bind them to your backs. Now, church, listen. Laws and making laws for your house, laws and making laws and rules for your people, your families, and all of that is exactly the wrong way to go. Because any law that you make will only increase rebellion and make lawbreakers out of who you put the laws down on. You contrast the laws of the scribes and the Pharisees, the 613, and then those amended to it, the thousands of them, to the laws of the Lord Jesus Christ. He said there ain't but two laws. He said to love your neighbor as you love yourself, and to love God with your heart, so all of your heart, soul, your body, and your mind. Two laws. And both of those laws was built upon love and respect. That was it. What Jesus was actually saying was, the law I give you is to love and respect one another. That's it. You see, if we love the person that we live with, we will do right by the person that we live with. You can forget the rules and the codes and the laws and the legalizations of this and of that and the amendments and all of the formulas of how for us to make things function and live right and do good by one another. If you do this, and this, then we'll be good. All that is required is that you love. Because who you love and what you love, if you do hurt it, it will be an accident. And that accident will quickly be remedied by your correcting it without being forced or told. So is it whenever you come to the religious world and living for God. Whenever we make church laws and church bylaws, as almost every church in the nation does, you have to ask yourself, why in God's name do we create a bylaw for a church? Why in God's name do we create a list of laws for our church? And when you have a Bible, or supposed to have a Bible in your church, you may be expecting too much today to have a Bible in the church. Oh, they all got something they call Bibles, but they ain't got Bibles in the church today. But nonetheless, the Lord said there's two laws here, two laws and two laws only. Number one, that you love God and you love people. You love and you respect. And if the person that you are with loves you, if the person you're sitting beside loves you, you're dealing with somebody right now that would rather take a bullet than to inflict damage upon your life. No mother, educated or not, no mother is there that walks that would not gladly take a bullet for the child of which they have brought into this world. It is because love covers, the Bible says, a multitude of sins. It is love. It is love and respect. what you don't love as his family or spouses, you respect. And the way you are respected is to be respectful. The way you are to be loved is to love. If I love you and there is any good in you at all, it makes it increasingly harder for you to hurt me. If you know that I love you. So the Lord is telling them that they are hypocrites. Laws that they had was that you couldn't heal on the Sabbath day. Jesus was condemned because he healed a blind man. Now this is how this business works. This is what lawmakers is all about. This is how it works. Jesus healed a blind man on the Sabbath day. The Jews then, who had in their laws that you couldn't heal people on Sabbath day because you could do no work. In fact, the business is you couldn't walk but so many feet. They had it mapped out for you just how far you could walk on Sunday or on Saturday. How far you could walk. You had to cook all of your food Saturday night because you couldn't cook an egg Sunday. Now, you know, maybe somebody say, well, okay, it's the Lord's day. We don't cook eggs on. We ain't going to cook Sunday. That's good if that's what you want to do. I'm just saying cooking an egg on Sunday ain't going to send you to hell. Cooking an egg on Saturday is not worthy of a lashing or a beating or you being ostracized and set out as an example of rot and filth. What did you do? Cooked an egg on Sunday. But you think that type of stuff does not work today? Oh, yes. There's legalism within denominations today that is so legalistic. They tell you how to wear your hair. They tell you how long your clothes has to be. They tell you how long your dress has to be. They tell you if you can wear a pants or if you don't wear pants, which always was remarkable to me because I was being browbeat by some of them legalistic devils whenever I first got in the ministry. And they was telling me that it was a sin for a man to wear a long shirt. And I said, well, I'm roofing the house right now. And if you think I'm going to wear long sleeves up on this roof, you're sadly mistaken. You can wear them. But then they told me that it was a sin for my wife to wear pants. I said, well, that's better than her just wearing her drawers, ain't it? They said, you can't wear pants. And I said, why? And they said, because pants is identified with men. Now, Sister Kitty, bear witness to this. This happened in our carport church. And women are not to wear anything identified with men. I said, okay. So I had her to go buy me a blouse and a pair of women's slacks. And that night, that Thursday night, what few people we had there, and half of them legalistic, was very much surprised, and you should have seen the looks on their faces when I walked, I closed the carport in. When I walked out of the side door into the carport and I was wearing a woman's blouse and a woman's pair of pants. You ought to saw how they looked at me. And I come and got behind the pulpit and just stood behind the pulpit and just stood there and just looked at them. Didn't say anything, just looked at them. Some of them was laughing. Some of them saying, oh my gosh. And I didn't say nothing. I just let them talk. I let them make their facial expressions. And then I finally said, I look funny in this woman's apparel? Do I look sort of gayish to you? Do I look a little funny bunny to you? Okay then, it's obvious that the suit, the clothes I'm wearing right now does not belong on nor pertain to a man. And one of the preachers that was preaching that stuff lived right in the yard with Sister Kitty's daughter, Memory. And his little daughters, God help me, the truth, not exaggerating at all. We was over at Memory's house and we was looking out the door and they had their daughters in their wonderful little dresses to play. And every time she would swing up and swing down, her little dress would come up above her head and it wasn't nothing but her little drawers showing. And I asked Memory, I said, come in and look at this. I said, you reckon the child in the pants would be more modest out there playing on that swing than the one that's showing her drawers to everybody every time she comes down in the swing? It's nonsense. You understand? Then there came this that you had to wash your hands before you ate. They was condemned. That's a good practice. But I don't think that you're going to go to hell, nor do I think you deserve lashes and beatings because you didn't wash your hands. Jesus said, look, it's not what goes in you, Pharisee, that defiles you. It's what comes out of you that defiles you. That makes more sense. Now, we come to an issue today, that of the scribes and the Pharisees. An issue that I can't preach this message without bringing this up, because you have to understand who the scribes and the Pharisees were. The scribes and the Pharisees was the leaders. Not just the preachers. The scribes and the Pharisees were the leaders. They were the government. And they were the religious leaders, but the religion and the government was one. They were your congressmen. They were your senators. They were your lawmakers, and they were your law enforcers. And remember, they would enforce laws, and they would make laws that was so burdensome that you could not carry them. And then they would enforce those laws upon you with all the things we've talked about, beatings and even crucifixions. But they would not touch one of them with their fingers. Did you know that the Congress of the United States is not but the lawmakers? Did you know that the Congress, the lawmakers of the United States, are not bound by any law that they create? Did you know that whenever this crime called Obamacare was instituted, did you know that a provision was made in there that none of the congressmen nor any of the senators in the U.S. government had to abide by the rules of Obamacare? Did you know that? Is that not insane? Is that not crazy? But you see, this legalistic attitude, this law-making attitude, this writing law after law after law after law, it's the same now as it was then, because it is the attempt to force someone to submit to a rule that the lawmaker seldom ever is willing to submit to themselves. We have seen nothing but wickedness formed. And today we have some hope. Today we have, and I'm watching closely. And I don't mean to get political, and I'm not getting political. I'm talking about people who's doing something. I'm finding more and more reason to have hope. I'm feeling kind of like the revivals that took place in the land of Israel whenever a pagan king would come to power. And all of the laws of righteousness or the codes of the God of the Bible would be dismissed, and they would tear down the altars of God and tear out the synagogues and burn down and destroy. And then they would set up their gods of paganism and gods of Moloch and gods of all these other gods. And Israel would go into paganism, become brutal, become filthy, finally bring hardships upon the people they couldn't hardly bear, while the filthy and the wicked abominables that was among them was flourishing and eating the caviar and having the wonderful times with wine and roses, while the people they inflicted was in dire poverty. And then all of a sudden the Bible would tell us that a righteous king came forth. And when this righteous king in the Bible came forth, you will always see the same actions. When the righteous king came forth, he tore down the shrines. He didn't mingle it in. He tore down the shrines of the wicked. He destroyed the altar of the wicked. He would even put to death the leaders of that wickedness, reestablishing righteousness in the land. You have to have a righteous doer. Now let me explain something to you. Sometimes a person that you see doing wrong is not at all an evil person. David did wrong, but he was far from an evil person. David did some terrible things. But even God said pertaining to David, after he done those terrible things, even God said, he is a man after my own heart. Sometimes good people can be seen doing bad things. Also, sometimes bad people can look up and do something good. I don't really know who is righteous, you understand? I don't really know who is saved. I don't know who is righteous. You say, do you believe that man is righteous? I say, I don't know. But I can tell you if what he's doing is righteous or not. That's what happened whenever Jesus healed that blind man. And Jesus' name was spoiled and ruined throughout the cities and slandered and lied on. And they asked that man if Jesus was a sinner or that was he bad, and he was healed by him. And he said, all I know is whereof as I was blind, now I see. That's all I know. Whether he be, the man said, whether he be sinner or saint, whether he be good or bad, what I can tell you is whereas I was blind, now I see. That's what I can tell you. I can tell you with all confidence what is done. I can tell you with all confidence if what's done is right or wrong, but I cannot tell you if the man or the woman do it necessarily is righteous or unrighteous. Now, I'm watching Mr. Trump pretty close. I don't get on nobody's bandwagon just because of who or what. I understand the nature of man, you understand? And you better look at the best of them. You better look at them real close. So I don't know. The case is still out. But I have hope right now as we deal with this legalism and these lawmakers that something good is happening. Whether or not he's righteous, I don't know. But what I do know is what the man's doing is righteous. Y'all heard that last week 24 Republicans sided with the Democrats to pass a law, keep a law already in place, that transgenders could serve in the military. Not only that they could serve in the military, but that if they were so confused about their gender, that is, if they a man or a woman, which, as I said last week, undress and stand in front of a mirror, it ought to solve your problem. That if they wanted to have the sex change operations, that they could have them and we would have to pay for them. Now, there were 6,000 to 7,000 in the military that wanted these sex changes. The total cost over the 7-year period that it would cost for them all to go through it while they're supposed to be fighting and protecting the country and they're getting a doodad switched around. Why should they even be in the military? That's nonsense. But anyhow, 24 Republicans, you can't trust nobody, upheld that law. And the total of it was going to cost $3.1 billion. That's $3.1 billion that the Democrats and the Republicans sided together, 24 Republicans, that you and me had to pay. What are you talking about? Grievous burdens being placed upon people's backs? The Obamacare says that I have to include in my insurance, because I'm healthy, I have to include in my insurance birth control. I don't use birth control. The 24 Republicans sided with the Democrats and kept that law with those transgenders in our military, of which you know biblically would be an abomination. Now, that's just what the book said. You don't like it, you ain't got to serve it. If you don't like it, you can throw yours away. If you don't like it, you can burn it. If you don't like it, you can never come to church again. If you don't like it. But as for me, I like it. And as for me, I believe it's the truth, and it's the only thing going to be preached down here, come hell or high water. Well, they come out and said the law is staying in place. 24 Republicans crawfished and switched parties and flip-flopped around and got the transgenders in the military. Mr. Trump wrote it out on a tweet. I just banned them. I didn't change the law. That is righteousness. I didn't change the law. I didn't override the law. I didn't veto the law. They not only go not get sex change operations, they ain't even serving, and the ones that's in there fixing to get out. That's a righteous work. That's a godly work. I don't care whether the man is righteous or unrighteous. I ain't on his side. I'm on God's side. And anybody doing willingly or unwillingly what God wants, I'm with you, I'm beside you, I'm behind you all the way. That was right what he did with the transgenders. It's right what he's done with the homosexuals. It's right what he's doing. I don't care if he makes it to heaven. I hope he does. But it ain't about him. It's about who you sing what that book says is the works of God and the works of righteousness. Which Christian, which church is going to stand behind the man for doing what God says, and which churches is going to side against him.